Welcome to the end of the Sabbath here on 3.26.2016 CE and the end of our study in our series. It is finished. This happens to be part 13E, his final week 7 words. I'm backing up to just a bit. At John 19:35, there stood by the stake of Yahshua his mother and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. When Yahshua therefore saw his mother and the disciple standing by whom he loved, he saith unto his mother, Woman, behold thy son. This is verse 27. Then saith he to the disciple, Behold thy mother. And from that hour the disciple took her into his own home. In the NLT it says, Dear woman, here's your son. And he said to his disciple, Here is your mother. And from then on, this disciple took her into his home. The 6th hour now, our Wednesday noon, the ensuing darkness. We're reading in Matthew chapter 27, known as Matthew 45 through 49. And from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th. And about the 9th hour Yahshua cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani? That is to say, according to the Peshitta Aramaic, an older, more reliable text than the Greek, my Elohim, why have you spared me? Then some of them that stood by when they heard said, This man cries for Eliah. And straightway one of them ran and took a sponge, filled it with vinegar, and put it on a reed, and gave him to drink. The rest said, Let us see whether Eliah will come to save him. But Mark 15:33 describes it this way, And when the 6th hour was come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour, 44. And it was about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over the whole earth until the 9th hour. That's Luke 23:44, 23:45. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. From the 9th hour, our Wednesday at 3 p.m., including the expiring cry, from Matthew 27:50, and this will go through 37. It's one, well, actually no, it's just the one verse. So Yahshua, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up to the Spirit. Now, in Luke 15:33 through 37, And when the 6th hour was come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour Yahshua cried with a loud voice, saying, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which is being interpreted, my Elohim, why hast thou spared me? From the Peshitta Aramaic, it's shakwathani imani eel, is what it is. And some of them that stood by when they heard it said, Behold, he calleth Eliah. And one ran and filled a sponge full of vinegar, and put it on a reed, and gave him to drink, saying, Let alone, let us see whether Eliah will come and take him down. And Yahshua cried with a loud voice, and gave up the spirit. Luke 23:44, and it was the 6th hour, about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour, 45. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst, 46. And when Yahshua had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And having said thus, he gave up the spirit. In John 19:28 through 30. After this, Yahshua, knowing all things were now accomplished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, saith, I thirst. Now there was set a vessel full of vinegar. They filled a sponge with vinegar, and put it on a hyssop, and put it up to his mouth. And when Yahshua had therefore received the vinegar, he said, "It is finished." He bowed his head and gave up the spirit. Which brings us to this point. Yahshua spoke 7 distinct statements while dying. To recap, he uttered the following. The first word, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do." Gospel of Luke 23:34. The second word, "Truly I say to you today, you will be with me in paradise," according to Luke 23:43. The third word, he said to his mother, "Woman, this is your son." Then he said to the disciples, "Son, this is your mother," according to John 19:26-27. The fourth word, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Matthew 24:27-46 and Mark 15:34. We have shown throughout the Aramaic that what he actually said was, my Elohim, why have you spared me?" He was quoting Psalms 22 as if a road map to those standing round about for them to understand. The ones who immediately responded didn't seem to. The fifth word, I thirst, according to John 19:28. The sixth word, they put a sponge soaked in wine on a sprig of hyssop and put it to his mouth. When Messiah had received the wine, he said, "It is finished." And then he bowed his head and handed over the Spirit. Remember that he said, "Into thy hands, Father, I commit my spirit." That's the according to John 19:29-30. And finally, this will probably be what I just said. The seventh word, exactly. Messiah cried out in a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit," according to Luke 23:46. Few Messianic students, it seems, emphasize these words at all, unlike their Christian counterparts who glory in them. I hope to study this section in depth later. I want to point out that Messiah was executed on a torture stake according to Wikipedia, stauros, the Greek word, which is better to be understood, translated best, stake, an instrument of torture for serious offenses. Thus, the JW New World Translation of the Bible uses the phrase torture stake to translate the Greek word stauros at Matthew 27:40, Mark 15:30, and Luke 23:26. Now, while I do not ordinarily subscribe to JW doctrines, I recognize that a stopped clock is right at least twice a day. From the Cross of the Messiah, that's an article we read. The inspired writers of the Christian Greek scriptures wrote in the common Koine Greek and used the word stauros to imply the same thing as in the classical Greek, namely a stake or pale, a simple one without a crossbeam of any kind or at any angle. There is no proof to the contrary. I have decided to adopt the position that I simply do not know if it looked like this or this. And it's like his birthday. He doesn't let me know. I have been able to subscribe from the scriptures that he was born during the Feast of Tabernacles, that he came to tabernacle with us, using John and other gospel authorities to piece this together. But it'd be hard for me to be dogmatic on it, and people are dogmatic about this or this, and I simply acknowledge that it was a tree, a piece of wood, something by which he died. And if the appearance of it is that important, why is it not addressed more in the scripture? To me, it would at best be a footnote. Okay? So they say there's no proof to the contrary. The apostles Peter and Paul also use the word xylon to refer to the torture instrument upon which Jesus was nailed, and this argues that it was an upright stake without a crossbeam, for that is what xylon in this special sense means. Acts 5:30, 10:39, 13:29, Galatians 3:13, 1 Peter 2:24, at Ezra 6:11. Now these are subsequent events in Matthew chapter 27, verse 50, and we read down to 56. When he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the spirit. Behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom. The earth did quake, and the rocks rent. The graves were opened. Many bodies of the dedicated which slept arose. There came out of the graves after the resurrection, went into the set-apart spirit and a set-apart city, and appeared unto many. And when the centurion and they with him, watching Yahshua, saw the earthquake and those things that were done, they feared greatly, saying, Truly this was the Son of the Almighty. And many women were there beholding afar off, which followed Yahshua from Hagalil, ministering unto him, among whom was Mary Magdalene, and I think the scripture says, out of whom he cast 7 demons, unclean spirits, and Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of Zebediah's children. Next, Mark 15:37, and Yahshua cried with a loud voice and gave up the spirit. And this is 38 through 41. The veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom. And when the centurion which stood over against him saw that he cried so and gave up the spirit, he said, Truly this man was the Son of God. There were also women looking on afar off, among whom were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, the less, and of Joseph and Salome, who also, when he was in Galilee, followed him and ministered unto him, and many other women which came up with him unto Jerusalem. Luke 23:46 through 49. When Yahshua had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And having said thus, he gave up the spirit. When the centurion saw what was done, he esteemed Elohim, saying, Certainly this was a righteous man. And all the people that came together to that sight, beholding the things which were done, smote their breasts and returned. And all his acquaintance and the women that followed him from Hagalil stood afar off, beholding these things. Next, John 19:30. When Yahshua therefore had received the vinegar, he said, It is finished, and bowed his head and gave up the spirit. The Jews, so-called, of that day, therefore, because it was a preparation that the body should not remain upon the stake upon that Sabbath day, for that Sabbath day was a high day, indeed that Sabbath day was Passover, coming up, besought Pilate that their legs might be broken, that they might be taken away. See, they didn't want to profane the day. Then came the soldiers and broke the legs of the first, and of the other which was impaled with him. But when they came to Yahshua, they saw that he was dead already. They broke not his legs. But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came out blood and water. And see, he died of a broken heart for you and I. This can be proven medically. And he that saw it bore record, and his record is true, and he knoweth that he saith true, that ye might believe. For these things were done, that the scripture should be fulfilled, a bone of him shall not be broken. And again another scripture saith, They shall look on him whom they have pierced.